I want to say that my 2 feet are back on the ground again, and it was a pretty incredible session. And of course, it was my first session up there. I will say the intensity is particularly about the last 3 weeks, going well over midnight, sometimes till 3 a.m., starting committee meetings the next morning. It has left me definitely convinced that one of my priorities, not in the short session, but in the next long session, is to address the issue of lengthening the session, because there's just so many bills, so many issues, many of them very, very complex, and just not the time to be able to go through them in the depth that sometimes I think we should have. But nonetheless, I will say that probably, and this is what our leadership is saying, and I think it's really true, having watched the sessions from afar over the last 8 years, this was one of the most productive sessions that we've had. And I'm just going to go through and tell you some of the, there are so many bills, and I'd be happy to comment on any of them. And I'd really like to hear what you'd like to hear about. But I definitely want to just go through and give the credit to the Democratic Party, particularly in the primary, in being able to shift, particularly the conservative Democrats in the southern part of the state, to a more central or progressive point of view. And that really made the difference in getting long-stalled bills through the legislature and signed. And probably the one that stands out is the abortion ban repeal. And that now is on the books. Again, we'll have to wait and see what the Supreme Court might or might not do. But the people at most risk under that were, again, potentially women, if the Supreme Court did something, who couldn't take care of themselves the way that they desired. And then also the physicians would go to jail. So that's gone. I think one of the other very, very impressive pieces that we were able to get through, and this one, I don't think, well, it's been very difficult in the past, it's not gotten through, but that's the early childhood. And actually it's 1.25%, if I remember correctly. Some of that will be going through K through 12. That's a little controversial. But so much money is going to be going into early childhood now, provided the amendment passes. This was just to get the amendment. And it will allow almost all 3- and 4-year-olds to get pre-K education, and will significantly increase the home visiting. Then there were a number of very impressive small business assistance pieces. And rather than going through, but the ability to get loans up to $150,000, increasing the loan pool from the permanent fund up to $500 million at really low interest rates and later payment. That is going to be very helpful. The ability for restaurants to not have to pay the gross receipts or get to deduct it from their taxes is going to be helpful there. The Family Income Index Act, and a number of others. And so I think New Mexico, along with President Biden and Congress, are definitely stepping up for New Mexicans. There will be if you're interested, the Finance Committee will be holding a hearing on the impact to New Mexico of the federal monies and where it will go. And that will significantly help education, small businesses, and a number of other folks. So if you're interested, I believe it's on the 28th and 29th, you'll be able to zoom in. I unfortunately will be deep in the goosenecks in the San Juan River, and we'll miss it, but I will definitely want to look at the recording. The End of Life Act passed this year as well. And I think it was strengthened a little bit, and I'm very pleased about that. the ban on trapping and on public lands is going into effect. So that's another significant bill. And one that I have had my eyes on from Mimi Stewart, and that's really increasing the educational retirement contribution, which was well behind para or the state. And so bringing them up to, not quite yet, but close to parity. The broadband, we've been chipping away at broadband, and so much of what we need to do, particularly in early childhood education, is difficult to do without broadband. And there have been numerous efforts. They've been uncoordinated. There will be federal money coming in as well as state money. But the goal is to get broadband throughout the state. It is a changing technology. Nonetheless, I think everyone understands that it's pretty critical. The Community Solar Act came through, and it's good. There were some provisions in it that I thought put particularly poorer ratepayers at risk, and also could disadvantage a number of the community solar companies. And myself and Meredith Dixon were able to get some amendments to do better protection around that. So we feel very good around that. The in healthcare, at some point I'll talk about some of the bills that I did. One I co-sponsored with Katie Duhigg, and that was protecting people under 200% of the poverty level from being taken to collections and thus bankruptcy, which has just been a pattern of every not-for-profit hospital that, it doesn't matter, Catholic, they all, university, and it's just, they're never going to get the money, and yet they take them. And it's just, so this will stop that. It will also be sure that people get more direction in terms of getting to Medicaid, the exchange, or other coverage. Incidentally, on the exchange, a couple of things. If people who are on it, one very, very important piece is that the federal government is putting $40 billion into subsidies. So just as an example, someone who is 55 and on a silver plan, who might be paying close to $1,000 a month for that plan per person, that will come down to about $500, $450. So that's just one of the examples. It's a long story and pretty dramatic. My bill on no cost sharing that I'll talk about was joined by Debbie Armstrong's bill in expanding monies using Medicaid match money, $75 million from the state, with a net match coming in and totaling $420 million for the state, and half of that going to expanding access within the exchange and other areas. So I think that did pretty well. I think one thing I think is a really good bill is Senator Pope's bill, who the Crown Act, in other words, no retribution or basically no comment on anyone in high school in terms of their hairstyle. And was glad that we really put that one through. And there's just, I could go on, and I've got a little bill cheat sheet here. And so if you have some bills that you want some comment on, or what happened, or I'm more than happy to answer questions around that. I think so I'll finish this part because I really think we do a lot, learn a lot more in an interactive and you all asking questions. And I'm sure that as I did this brief summary, there's some bills that you're interested in. Also, there may have been some bills that you would have liked to have seen passed. I can tell you maybe what happened to them. Again, in healthcare, the Health Security Act study is being funded, a lot of it with what we call junior money, going into studying, can we get to a single payer in New Mexico at some point in the future? Also in that vein, there's about 250, 300,000 going into a bill to look at primary care. Primary care, as you know from me, is so under filled around the state. The state needs about 1,800 primary care physicians, and they're 500 or 600 short, at least. And that's a very conservative estimate. I think when we go back and do a real count, include part-time, there'll be even less. But we will be, David Scrace is going to be putting together the council to study what we can improve in terms of primary care, what we can really get done. I should probably also mention that something where I spent a lot of time because I was deeply, deeply concerned. It's very technical, but that's essentially the patient compensation fund, getting that fixed. There's definitely always has been, but this time probably more fiercely than any other, a standoff between the trial lawyers and the medical community. And the trial lawyers at one point were looking for a $25 million cap. When right now it was 600,000. Hospitals did come into the fund. Again, it's the whole thing is quite technical, but I'm glad to say that at the end, particularly for physicians, because we are having more and more of a physician shortage in the state, not just primary care, but specialties. And it's not getting any better. This is not an attractive state to practice medicine in. But fortunately, the cap only went up to 750,000 for physicians, and the hospitals will be in the fund and make it whole over a period of time. But those are really tough nuts to crack, and that was one that I was pretty involved in, getting between a rock and a hard place. But I think we got to a good resolution.
Martin, we got a couple of hands up. I'm going to.
Okay.
And then we have some questions in the chat as well. Puck, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks, Margaret. Hi, Martin.
Hey, Puck, how are you?
Good. I have 3 questions, and I'll just say them all, and then you can tackle however you want. Do you know what committee you're on for the interim, and also what priorities you're working on and what legislation you're going to be working on this summer and fall? That's 2 of them. And then the third is, which way would you have voted on the cannabis legalization?
Oh, okay. Let me start with the latter. I voted yes. That was for the legalization of cannabis. And it was pretty dramatic. I had dual obligations when they scheduled that special session. And again, this is a little bit technical, but I was there for the committee as a whole and helped vote it out of the committee as a whole so that it could be passed by the people who were on the floor on Thursday morning. But I voted yes on that. The priorities going into committees, I have asked to be on both finance and health. There's been some query about me moving over to finance, particularly as I helped pass Debbie Armstrong's bill and people couldn't quite figure out how the money worked in that. So we'll see, but I'll definitely be attending some of the health sessions and some of the economic development sessions in finance. And then I'll be on health for essentially all of their meetings over the summer. In terms of priorities, as you may or may not know, I did pass a very substantial piece of legislation that eliminates co-insurance, co-pays, deductibles, in other words, what we call cost sharing for anyone, not at a certain poverty level, what have you, because substance use disorder and behavioral health impact everybody at every level. And the co-pays, the co-insurances, the inability sometimes for those who can to get out of state, but there will be no out-of-pocket costs for 5 years on anyone seeking mental health, behavioral health, substance use disorder, outpatient, intensive outpatient programs, residential treatment centers, partial hospitalizations, all medications, including the very expensive brand for psychotic psychoses, and the putting the measures together, the LFC and the OSI are going to come together with the health plans and do measures, because basically what happens is if you take care of behavioral health, this is what we learned in New Mexico Health Connections when we stopped charging the out-of-pocket there for outpatient and medications. The literature is just replete with how much chronic costs decrease on their own when mental health is stabilized, and it more than pays for itself. But being sure that the health plans don't do sneaky little things like try and reduce their compensation to behavioral health providers to make up for it. So getting that implemented and getting the rules written the right way is going to occupy a lot of my time. The Behavioral Health Council and the Health Security Act, I've been asked to be an advisor on that. So those are what I will be working on this summer. My new priorities, as I learned, and as I watch sometimes, I fortunately had my field manager staffing me, as well as an assistant who in normal times have been sitting at their desk. There has got to be staffing. It is virtually crazy trying to attend committees, get your own bills through, testify, go through, and there must be staffing. And that is something that can be done legislatively. That doesn't require a constitutional amendment.
Martin, that was one of the questions that came up from our chat. That was from Judith Mink, so thank you for addressing that. Neely, what's your question?
Yes. So you addressed we need to lengthen our session. What is your feel for a timeline of getting our legislators financially compensated? We're the only state legislature in the country now where our state legislatures are not paid a salary. Because I think that goes hand in hand with lengthening the legislative session, because we're pulling people away from income earning opportunities. I know we're in a budget crunch right now, but do you have an idea of how long that would take for us to do that?
Yeah, well, actually compensating legislatures is not very expensive compared to all the other money. And saying we're in a budget crunch is not an excuse to not get that passed. It has to be a constitutional amendment. The first attempt, I believe, 4 years ago, was to have the ethics commission set the salaries for everyone in the state, so they don't actually put the, do you want to pay your legislators on in that language. That bill was bouncing around. I've learned a lot of what does and doesn't get through committees and committee chairpersons and so forth, and that has a lot to do with it. But I think a number of people will be pressing if we could. The governor doesn't have to sign it, and so it doesn't really have to go on her call list for this upcoming session. So I'm hoping that that comes at that time. And then we'll look at length of time, and then the other issue, as I said, we can do without a constitutional amendment, and that's staffing.
Thank you, Martin. And thank you for your hard work. I knew it would be a bath of cold water up there with the long hours. Good Lord.
Yeah, no, it was, in my residency, I did 4 weeks as an intern, 36 on, 12 off, and then in the ER, and then went to the ICU. And that was the most exhausted I've been in my life until this time.
Yes, thank you.
I think you have a question.
I do, and thank you. So Senator Hickey, again, I also want to thank you for your great work. And my question centers around some work that I do, and it's in helping individuals, particularly during these difficult times in evictions. So there's been an eviction moratorium that has been entered that will be in existence until August. What I am most concerned about is that there was it seems to be a disconnect. I'm not really sure what it is, and hopefully you'll explain it. So there was a number of, a large amount of money that came into the state from the federal government, but the governor vetoed the portion of a use of it because she said it was for her discretion. So where was the disconnect between the legislature and the governor in terms of using that money? I put that before you. And the other item is with respect to eviction funds, it has been incredibly difficult to get through to some of those funds because of the arduous process of the application. And if you could tell us how we can help make that a more simple problem issue in the future application, but then that disconnect between the legislature and the governor on that federal money is really important.
Right. Let me address the disconnect first. It's kind of like whose money is it anyway? And the initial CARES Act money basically was the governor's, and things got passed that somehow. This was back in the special session last summer. But there are a number of legislators were wondering, and it was still, and I was not aware, but I was out essentially for 3 weeks that the governor had vetoed that, and I will have to look into that, and I will get back to you. I can't explain it to you today. I don't have enough understanding, and but I will dig into it and get back to you, because I mean that all goes with everything else that we're trying to do with businesses and so forth, and individuals, and the family tax credit. We've got to keep people from getting evicted. So I agree with you, and I will look into that. And that takes me back to, if the city council and the commissioners have a $60,000 a year staff person, why does not each legislator? So I could get back to you ASAP rather than when I can get to it over the next 4 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Martin. Adelia, you have a question?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So, Senator Hickey, I was wondering, what was the final amount of the capital outlay money that you got for our district? And I was wondering what projects kind of you distributed the millions of dollars that we got.
Yes. I've got it over on my desk, Dahlia, and not right in front of me. I meant to put it in front of me because I knew people would be asking questions, but at some point where there's a break, I will get that and come back to you and talk about the different projects. Lots to the schools. A number to community parks in the city. In terms of junior money, I gave $100,000 to the Department of Behavioral Health in HSD. But there are so many, but schools were the primary piece of it. And UNM, I did give $200,000 to them. I got a call before the 12:30 deadline from their lobbyist, and they needed $200,000 for a biology lab. And as we were going through, and the other piece was coordinating it with the representatives so that we didn't overlap. And Melanie and I and Meredith and Liz, we all, it does come at the last minute, but we all got it parceled out so that we weren't double doing. And so it was actually, it was kind of fun. And they had a whole new software program this year that drove all the older legislators crazy. The rest of us didn't know any better.
Right. Thank you.
I will get that, and and if you want, I'd be happy to send you a copy of the list too, because it's pretty.
Oh, that would be phenomenal, because so one of the projects I worked on this session was I serve on the board for Meals on Wheels, and we asked for $100,000, and I did all that paperwork and contract with the city. So the city of Albuquerque is our fiscal agent, but I was able to get $180,000, and I was so happy. And Meals on Wheels serves our district too, and this is a big area. So we were just wondering if you can help us, because we're going to do it again next year and expand, because we are the biggest organization, Meals on Wheels of the state. So we want to take you to lunch and reach out for your support to see if you could be one of our sponsors, in the future to help out, for hungry individuals.
I'm happy to do that. We did some food stuff. Again, I at the last minute, things were so crazy. But I'll send you the list, and I'll be happy to go to lunch, but only when we get the COVID lifted, because I'd rather be able to smile and look at you like this than looking like I'm off doing a holdup.
Yes, our COVID coffee. And then a follow up on the question. So, is the list up now for
Yes.
the capital outlay transparency
Yes.
bill that passed? Oh, excellent.
Yes.
Okay.
It is up. I'm not, I think the Senate clerk sent it to me, but anyway, I think you'll find it either on some legislative website.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Okay, thank you, Senator. Good to
Yeah.
see you.
Yeah, and my junior money will be there as well.
Excellent. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Me in the house now, and I'd like to invite her to speak with us. Martin, this is a great opportunity if you wanted to go to your desk and get
Yeah.
that list. And let's see if we can get Melanie's mic turned on. Are you with us, Melanie? There you go. I see your name. She had reported in earlier that she was having some audio trouble or having some difficulties, and audio was going to be our best bet. And now I'm not being able to get her unmuted. Jesse, you're with us. Can you reach out to Melanie?
Yes, I'll send her a text.
Thank you very much. All right. There was, let's see, one other question for the senator. This was from Puck. She says, thank you, Martin. One additional question. How will you be keeping in touch with us, SD20 constituents, during the interim? Will you be sending emails, hosting town halls, establishing a Facebook page, office hours, something else? So when Martin comes back from his desk. Maybe.
Yeah, I didn't leave because I knew we're having maybe difficulties up here, not uncommon with the internet. Yes, we will be hosting town halls. Starting to on the 11th of May, in about 2 weeks, we're doing one for the volunteers in the campaign. So we will thank you, Margaret, again for putting this together, and we'll try and put together some more. This is probably one of the more effective ones in terms of getting out to all the wards. As soon as we can meet at the community center on Comanche, we'll be scheduling live in-person town halls. At some point in terms of office hours and so forth, we're going to get that established. My legislative director she's now on her vacation. And so we'll be pulling things together. We'll have 2 feet back on the ground because May is just the best time to be outdoors in the Southwest, along with September and October. I'm doing the river trip back for a few days, and then I'm going to southern Utah to hike, but I'll be back on the 24th and re-engaging. We did send mailers out to, we only get 2,500 letters. Again, this is crazy, but we did send it out to the middle of the voter list and so forth. So yes, there'll definitely be things coming up.
Thank you.
And anyone can call me. And I think you have my contact information below. We'll put it there. My 900-1841, and I'll be happy to return voicemails. And also, if I'm there, I'll pick it up.
Thanks. We have another question for you from Pamela.
Yes, Pamela.
Dr. Hickey, one of the big issues that came up was the $15 an hour wage as the minimum wage. And so what was really quite troubling is that there was a hearing about that, but there didn't seem to be as much support, not even among the Democrats as we thought that there would be. Can you help us understand what happened? What went wrong there?
You know, in my first term, I'm learning the panels that you've got to usually get through with tough bills, and that's finance and judiciary. And also the one I was on, tax, is sometimes a barrier. The, from my point of view, I do believe some appropriate, again, I'm sorry, my watch just went off. But we did raise the minimum wage for teenagers up to the $10.80 an hour. But I agree with you. I have a whole stack of materials that I was waiting for the bill to come through in whatever committee, and it just basically didn't make it into a hearing. And I can't tell you why. Again, being a freshman, I'm not part of leadership per se, and the discussions with the governor that go on all the time and what have you. But I think that, everyone is very concerned that small businesses would be hit. I got heavily lobbied by the commercial sector not to vote for the paid time off. And I just said, you know what, as a physician, I can't do that. People get sick. And in fact, being sick and coming to work is going to infect other people and hurt your productivity even more. So you should want to do this. That wasn't very popular, but we did get it passed. So we're going to keep working on that as I look at the economics of the state, and we're the bottom of everything. The other thing that that stood out for me is a third of our budget is dependent on oil. And, in some ways, thank God. In other ways, oil is the locomotive. In 10 to 15 years, and maybe even shorter, the price of energy from renewables, it's already starting. And if we don't develop that and get ahead of it, and we are number one in terms of acreage and exposure to sun in the country for solar, and and windmills are doing well, but the future is in solar, and we have opportunities there. I went to a orientation session on schools, and at the end I said, "What are you going to do about oil?" And they said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, 30% of your budget." We don't know. And I was like, you haven't begun to think about what's going to take its place in the future? So I had a bill, but again, it basically got sat on to aid economic development. A lot of people say only New Mexican entrepreneurs should get the tax breaks. No, there is so much money out there waiting to be invested, and we've got to give it to people outside of the state as well. We have to develop. We're right on the cusp of being able to do that. So it's, I found the legislature is, a lot of really smart people, and it gets really crazy at the end. But again, expanding the time, expanding the ability to dialogue in committee hearings. When you can't have an opponent to a bill bring experts to the table, who's learning that? Just part of what you're saying. So, again, I'm not in charge. This is very different for me because I've been in charge, and but I'm learning that this is how politics works. But again, I over 8 years trying to build my credibility as a freshman, and but standing up for things that I think are very important. But it's the structure of the way we legislate in this state has got to change ASAP, and then we've got to expand the economy. We fight over scraps, and we could grow the pie by 2 feet.
Right. So I think that's a really nice segue. Thank you for the question, Pamela. And Martin, thank you for your answer. I think we have Melanie, and
Great.
She will be a great person to talk with us. Is she still with us, Jesse?
I'm here.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi.
How are you, Melanie?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Here you are. Thank you so much for taking the time out of what I know is an insane schedule for you right now to come to your own ward meeting. How very cool is that? Oh, and
I'm excited.
As she is a member, she is our representative from precinct 530 on the County Central Committee. So it's service up and down. Let's see, I would like to just turn the floor over to you. I would imagine you want to talk with us about the campaign, but please just share what your experiences are and where you are right now and where you intend to be.
Sure. Well, before I get going, as all of you know, I like to talk, so I want to make sure that I respect the agenda. And also, I apologize. I've been driving, doing call time, and also trying to listen to the word meeting. So I'm sorry that I was sort of on and off. But before I kind of launch, how much time do I have, and what all would you guys like me to cover? Do you want me to talk about the legislature as well, or just the campaign, or both?
I think I would prefer that you talk about the campaign, but let's entertain questions either by raised hands or in the chat if there are questions about the legislature. And in terms of your timing, if you could give us 15 minutes, that would be excellent. That'll keep us on.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I won't do a long introduction because I think I know almost all of you and all of you know me, but I'll just say I'm Melanie Stansbury and I'm your State House Representative here in House District 28. I am also your Democratic congressional candidate running for New Mexico's 1st Congressional District in a fast, furious, and crazy special election that is happening on June 1st, which is just 5 weeks away. And our early voting is actually beginning with absentee and early in-person voting at the clerk's office on May 4th. So that's just 2 weeks away. So it's a huge race. We knew that it would be a difficult transition to go from what was a very small party nomination process in terms of staffing and infrastructure, and of course the electorate was 200 people, to scaling up to an entire congressional race in a number of weeks. And I would say it's actually turning out to be much more challenging than I ever could have imagined on multiple levels, and namely because special elections are always more difficult, they're always more conservative, and you always have lower voter turnout. And so in this election, because right now there's only a 6-seat margin in Congress between Democrats and Republicans, the Republicans are playing in every special election in the country because why wouldn't they, right? Like any seat they can pull off gets them closer to basically undermining the Democratic majority in Congress. And so right now there's a 6-seat margin and 5 of those seats are vacant because we have 4 special elections due to nominations and unfortunately a death. And so every single race is basically at play right now nationally. And because the last time we had a special election in CD1, Heather Wilson won, and because the seat was Republican for 45 years, the Republicans are making a serious play for this seat. Now, what that is manifest as is what you're seeing on TV if you watch network television. Right now, the Republicans are just dumping money on TV. And I didn't really understand all of this. I'm still learning as a new congressional candidate, but the implications of it is that basically they're outspending us many-fold. And in a tight, fast-paced race like this, it's strategic to do that because it, 1, gets their message out there much quicker, and 2, it causes us to have to spend down our balances. So it's a sort of a strategic way for them to force us to spend a lot of money on media. So the current state of the race is over the last 3 weeks since I was named as the nominee, we've stood up a massive field team of which Jesse, who's staffing us today, joined us. He was on Antoinette Cedillo Lopez's primary team and has come over and is now working for us. What we've done since the primary ended is tried to bring all of the teams together, not just for the purposes of unity, but because I believe strongly in community-based campaigning, community-based policymaking, and I think it's critical that we have everyone's voices and visions incorporated into the campaign that we carry forward. So we have an amazing team of people who've joined us, and I'll tell you a little bit about how we're set up and how our ward and precincts can participate, and a little bit about our fundraising and some of the big things that have been happening. So the last time we had a field program this large in CD1 was when Martin Heinrich flipped this seat in 2010. So in the last 3 weeks, we've set up a massive field team. We've hired Sean Ward to be our field director, who used to be the Albuquerque Federation of Teachers organizer. So he's a good union organizer from the teachers who are, bar none, some of the best organizers in the city. He's a native New Mexican, a CD1 native, and most recently was working on the Bernie campaign as a field director. And so we're extremely fortunate that Sean was willing to come home and help us get this race across the finish line. So we have, Sean has organized our field program by region. And he hopefully, and our regional folks have reached out to you already. You should have gotten emails from various people, including Donna, over the last several weeks to get everyone plugged into that regional system. In addition to that, we are doing focused community outreach to community organizations, to community leaders, and to different organizations that really connect the fabric of our communities. So we have, probably some of you have met Mohammed, who is our Asian American and Pacific Island outreach person. John Ramos and Marcela Mendoza are doing our Spanish language and Hispanic outreach. We have hired Devontae Watson is doing African American outreach for us, and Kiana, whose last name I always blank out and on the moment, who is the Native American outreach person for the Democratic Party, is doing Native American outreach for us. I'm spending a lot of my time, in addition to doing call time, doing meetings with community leaders across the board, also the faith community. We're doing lots of outreach there, and just trying to mobilize and excite our community as much as possible. It's really hard in a race that happens this fast. We're trying to compress what normally takes 18 to 24 months into 6 weeks of work. And so part of my ask to all of you today is to use your personal networks to help get out information about this special election, because each of you, not just through your precincts, but also through community organizations you participate in, churches or other faith communities you participate in, volunteer activities, we need to activate all of our networks. So we'll provide some follow-up information. So in addition to doing kind of our direct voter outreach work of, making phone calls, and we'll be doing some canvassing, we need you to start sending emails to every single possible network, your kids, your parents, your colleagues, and letting them know about getting out the vote. So that's really, really important. The second piece is fundraising. I don't think I could have imagined how massive this fundraising operation would be. We were initially told this race would cost probably around $700,000. We are now being told we have to raise $1.4 million by June 1st to be able to keep up and hold parity with the media program that the Republicans are running right now. Like, they are just spending down money at a breakneck record. So we have amazing support at the national level. Some of you may have seen on social media that Dr. Jill Biden was in town this week. She was actually here to visit with the Navajo Nation, but literally Nancy Pelosi put in a personal call and asked her to do an event for our campaign, and she did. And so she did a fundraising event for us. And I mentioned this on some other meetings that I've been on the last few days. At the end of it, I was sort of like fangirling, freaking out, talking to her. And I just said, thank you so much. I know this was a lot to add to your calendar to do this event. And she turned to me in a very matter of fact way and said, when Joe and I decided that we were going to nominate Deb to be our next Interior Secretary, we promised Nancy and Deb that we would keep this seat blue, and we are going to keep that promise, and we are going to do everything we can to help you win this race. So the President of the United States and Dr. Jill Biden and Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, the Women's Caucus, are all helping us on this race. I get calls from Lois Frankel, who's the head of one of the women's caucuses, almost daily asking how my call time is going. And people all over the country are helping us raise money, or helping us do fundraisers, and helping us raise that $1.4 million. The DCCC, Emily's List, and 314 Action, which is a science organization, are also helping provide consulting services and infrastructure. But it's a hard race. And so one of the things that, you know, in addition to my ask to all of you to help, you know, organize and turn out the vote through our precinct and our ward, is that, and getting out the word through our networks, is we do need help with fundraising. We are on like fundraising bonanzas. I'm doing like 2 to 3 fundraisers on some days at a time now. If you yourself are able to donate, I'll put the donation link in the chat. If you'd like to help us make calls to fundraise, that would be super helpful. And then, you know, any ideas you have about how we can activate our communities, how we can get out the vote, how we can help people understand really what's at stake in this race is not just about New Mexico and holding this seat blue for us, but it's also about holding this seat for our congressional majority in Congress. And that's why people like our president and his amazing and accomplished wife are helping support this race. So my ask to you is to get to work and help us out and help us turn out the vote. I'll just say we're going to be, we are already holding pretty much constant phone banking. You can do phone banking on your own. You can organize phone banks. I know Margaret has been helping, and others, to do handwritten postcards to voters. And starting on May 1st, hopefully with the blessing of our governor, we will begin doing some limited COVID safe in-person canvassing, especially in communities that are low propensity voter communities. So we have our work cut out for us. So the other thing is to ask people to help. If you have friends, family who'd like to get active, recruit everyone you can. We need every human, every vote, every dollar, every possible contribution we can to get this across the finish line on June 1st, so we can hold CD1 blue. And with that, I think I will stop talking and take some questions. I just one question that caught my eye in the chat, but I'll go through more systematically. There is going to be televised debates on every channel. So yeah, the first debate was this last week. It was hosted by a number of African-American civic organizations and PBS and the Black Voters Alliance, I think is the name of the organization that hosted it. And Mark Moores did not show up. So I think that really speaks volumes about his engagement in this race, but he's also a millionaire and self-funding his race. So he is just depending on TV and his national donors to help him get there. But yeah, there'll be, I think Channel 4 is the first televised debate that we'll be doing. So that is that. I'm skimming the notes here. I see that Idalia has put something in about a Cinco de Mayo congressional forum. So yep, we're looking forward to that. I think that'll be exciting. And actually, Idalia, we may do some follow up with you as well, because we're doing some Spanish media outreach, and I'd love to get your thoughts on that as well.
Absolutely. Call me anytime. And on that point, what is the best phone number to reach you personally to give you information that could help, just heads up on stuff that that would be beneficial to your campaign? What's the best number to reach you at personally?
Yeah, I'll put my phone number in the chat right now, because I'm in like 12 hours a day of calls and Zooms. You're most likely to catch Karina, who is my deputy campaign manager, who's now also staffing me in person, so she can ask me questions and stuff. But I'll put my phone number here in the chat.
Thank you. And just to clarify, are you confirmed? Because we don't have you as confirmed.
I think so, but let me have Karina check on that as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. I see Brooke, oh yeah, is here to talk about organizing here in the Heights. Bomi asked about fundraising in a direct message. My fundraising director is Kira Ellis Moore, who is also Teresa Ledger Fernandez's campaign director. So if you'd like to talk fundraising, I can put you in touch with Kira. And I'll just take questions and comments or ideas or anything from the floor, if anyone has anything. Please unmute and go.
Yeah, Melanie, it's Martin. Thank you for, it was a squeaker, but you did it incredible in getting the nomination. And I think that's really great. And Melanie persuaded me in the last couple of days and a couple other senators to come out and support her campaign. And, you know, I'm really glad that we did, because I think you've got the energy and stamina to take it all the way. But I also want to comment on not only is this important for the nation, this is really important for New Mexico. I spent 2 months with Mark Moores. Nice guy, and but he is nowhere close, not even an itsy bitsy teeny bit close to democratic ideals. And so for our representation in Congress, which I know very well as the governor, back then Congresswoman, helped us in the co-op program, it's really important that Melanie win this race. So again, this has got to be grueling as hell, especially after the session, to just have no time off and take it through the election. But thank you for running. And I look forward to seeing you in Washington someday.
Thank you, Senator. And, you know, I'll just say 2 follow-up things. I know many of you were either yourself involved in the SCC race or helping support candidates, myself and others. And, you know, I just think we had amazing candidates. We had 8 candidates in our primary. Each of the candidates had beautiful personal stories, visions for New Mexico. And I think one of the things that was so cool about a lot of our debates and forums is how aligned all of our values were on policy. And I think that really speaks to the tremendous amount of unity and vision that our community has about the kind of future that we want to build for ourselves. And it was truly an honor for me to be on the campaign trail with all of the candidates. And my vision for this both campaign and then serving our district is to make sure that all of those voices and everyone has a seat at the table moving forward. So I appreciate that. And then, you know, a number of people have asked me at these ward meetings a little bit more about Mark Moores, because, you know, he's an unknown entity to most people. He's a state senator. He's been serving for close to a decade, and he lives in the Tanawon area, so he's north of us. And he's a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing, because he is a nice man and he comes across as a kind of like, you know, normal, affable kind of ex-football guy. But he has the one of the highest conservative voting rates in the New Mexico state legislature. And he's a hardcore Trump. Like, if you look at all of the stuff that he's putting out right now, it's all Trump talking points. It's all about fear. It's all about crime. It's about, you know, the immigration. And he's really playing to a lot of, frankly, very racist tropes. And this last 2 weeks ago, the AP published an article wherein he allied himself with the Georgia legislature, who just passed these restrictions on voting rights. So, I mean, to me, that says it all, right? And so, you know, someone can be a nice person, but it doesn't mean they're going to be a good representative for our community. And so it's really, really important that we turn out the vote. There's a lot at stake for our community, a lot at stake for our country. And so we just have to do every possible thing we can to turn out the vote.
Thank you.
And I see Brooke and Jesse have put their contact information. One thing I'll note, since many of you are familiar with the coordinated campaigns that the state party has run in the past, Once the nomination process was concluded for the Democratic Party, basically we have now folded the race with the party. So the party is running the field program, but through the campaign. So it's all one giant coordinated campaign. So you'll see that Brooke and Jesse have NM Democrat emails, and that's because our entire field staff are co-located with the party. So.
Okay, thank you. If there are, Melanie, do you have anything else you want to tell us, or are there any other questions from the floor?
I think if it's okay, I'd love for Brooke and Jesse to introduce themselves.
Absolutely.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, my name is Jesse Heitner. I'm a CD1 native, grew up there all my life, left for a number of degrees, and I'm now back. I've been involved in politics since 2004, where I actually dropped out of school to campaign for Kerry, and went back, finished school, and now realizing as a public health professional, which is my other hat, I have a doctorate in public health, how important politics is in determining the health of the nation. I mean, that's obvious to the whole country now. I know politics and keeping every district, particularly my home district, blue, is important if I want to serve the public health of this country. So here I am. I'm excited and dedicated to be working for Melanie, and it's a pleasure to do so in the Northeast Heights. I grew up sort of at Spain and Eubank, so it's my home turf.
Thank you, Jesse. Brooke, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hi, sorry, hop in here really quickly. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. It means so much to all of us. Anyways, hi, my name is Brooke. I am from New Mexico, grew up in Santa Fe, but I am a UNM graduate. So this is also sort of like a very important district to me because it's my home, and this matters for not just the district, but for all New Mexicans, because we need a champion like Melanie who's actually going to make changes happen for a more sustainable future for New Mexico. But anyways, a little bit about me. I got involved in organizing on Xochitl Torres Small's race as the Spanish speaking and Latinx constituency organizer for her. And anyways, I continue to work for Senator Hamblin during the legislative session. And now here I am, very excited to be here and yeah, ready to go fight win.
Go fight. That's
All
perfect.
right. I can't follow that. That's a mic drop right there. Let's do it.
Doctor, Senator, I never know which to call you. So Senator Martin Hickey for joining us and giving us very comprehensive information about his experience in the legislature these last sessions, and also sort of a peek into the future of what we can expect you to focus your energies on. We very much appreciate having you there in Santa Fe on our behalf. And Melanie, my dear, God bless you. And this is going to be exciting. We're going to do everything we can. There's a little note from Puck that says in the chat, says, just finished another batch of postcards. Go, Melanie, go. So everybody reach out to Jesse and to Brooke. Get your marching orders. This is a rally the troops time if ever there was one. I just want to thank you all very much for showing up. This is our first ward meeting of 2021. It's the first ever Zoom ward meeting. We're going to have another ward meeting in June, and we'll be able to congratulate our Congresswoman at that point because it'll be, I think, June 27th. Probably going to do it Zoom, and I wanted to let you know that our speaker is going to be Mariela Ruiz Angel, who is the coordinator of the Albuquerque Community Safety Department. So we will have cops and firemen and counselors, basically. So this is a new wave, and I can see Martin shaking his head. This is a good thing from a behavioral health and public safety perspective. So once again, thank you all very much, and I will look forward to maybe someday getting around to canvas houses with you. But in the meantime, stay safe, and we'll be back in touch. Thank you very much.